Hello everyone, thanks a lot to the organization and all the colleagues that are working in these difficult moments with this online conference. Well, I am going to present the paper about asymmetry in intergovernmental relations, the case of the state of autonomies in Spain. This work is going to be published in a JCR journal in November this year. So if anyone want a copy in that moment, can contact me in the email or in ResearchGate. Well, for this, we are standing with the common ground that we are sharing with other colleagues across the world, in that Spain is a federalized state. Spain is a federalized state. So, not in the name, not in the law, but according to several studies of our work of more than 15 years, and our approach is that Spain has at some points it's even an state even more decentralized than states that are in with the name that federalized states. Okay, so for that, one of our questions is the problem of recognizing the diversity that there is inside Spain, and the equity that a state has to have equity for all over the citizens in all over the state. So for that, we with the beginning of the how this state has the configuration with the constitution and with our historic evolution after a dictatorship. Now our constitution has more than 40 years working and an evolution of a autonomous state. So we have a lot of interest and a lot of space for researching and for have this kind of work. So with these elements, we have how the question is how we can mix that necessity of equity and recognition that cultural diversity inside the state. Also, this is very important, and Latin America, and even this is a study case with our current parameters of working. We can compare with some other countries, and that is very important for this space and the World Congress for this kind of researching too, and especially the Latin American countries and other countries federalized in the law or not federalized, that for the evolution have this kind of traces, no? So as we can you can now see, this is the map of Spain with 17 autonomous communities, and with that, only without you can see the traces of asymmetry, because the size, because of the population, because some of the elements that we can now have as asymmetry of this kind of distribution of the power in the state, not like in other states that there are symmetry and the behavior is quite different than this study case. So also with all of that, in this work we are examining with our methodology with quantitative data and with other kind of data. For example, in the quantitative data, we are examining the number of public employees of the general administration of the state, the autonomous communities, and the local corporations. In this more than 40 years, we can see as the general administration now is weaker than before for that evolution, and the autonomous communities they grow with the time. They grow with the time, and they are going up in resources, in employees, and other kind of data. No, so now the public employees are more in the regional level, in the autonomous on the autonomous communities. That evolution has we can examine it that there is several phases, and until 10 years ago it was the major level of develop of this kind of state before the crisis of Catalonia, that probably some of you already know about that. Well, with that, we are in the paper that in the article that is going to be published. You can see also approaches of several authors like Agranov, that if you are working in this kind of intergovernmental relationship, and that is your research item, you can know probably a lot about the works of Agranov. That is also in our theory framework, and the definition, of course, of intergovernmental relations, that is with Agranov and with Wright, and also others authors. No? With that, with that data, we also see the dynamics of intergovernmental relations, and how are changing in these 40 years. Without changing, without data, we can measure the changes and the phases, and the growing of the asymmetry, no? And with that, and also matter of this panel, the mechanism of coordination, that is also considered like coordinate the process of transfer of competences and the relationship between levels. Also, other like instruments for adapting policies to the peculiarities of the different territories. Well, with that, we are going deeper in this work, and we can see more data that they are leading us to the conclusions that we have that kind of asymmetry. And for that, now you can see that too. The data from 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, and also we have more recent data to compare and to stabilize that different phases and the phases of the system, and different times and different moments. Even with that different times and different moments, we can see as especially there are some communities like Madrid, Catalonia, of the Balearic Island, that the citizens are given for the media of the money that is with the taxes that they are given, they are the givers, because they are the sustain of the other parts of the states, that they are receiving more than they are giving. So we can see that we have several communities that they are the givers and others that they are the receivers. With this kind of examination, and that is very used in Catalonia, for example, we can they say that they are the victims of this kind of system, and for that they are always complaining about all that of stuff. And this is the difficult of the this is one of the main difficulties for the examination of the equity of the state. This kind of data is also very complicated because now we have, after finishing this job, because for example you can go in deeper in this researching, and for example you can see as some companies have the main headquarters in some areas, and for that the data that is very complicated. That is very complicated too, and that kind of data is also beneficial for some regions, among others, for example. No? So that is other kind of problems with all of this researching, but that we are considering that problems, but even considering that we have several items to go in and to lead into the conclusions that can be really solid to this kind of examination, and to resolve some of our questions of researching, like for example this. After that, from 2 years ago, we have even more data. You can now see in your windows that this kind of examination can have, for example, several or different examination that for different institutions and even universities. So we have been recollecting a lot of data, and with that, if you are changing the items, you can see as some of them are going up or going down. But even with that, and with the different items, different types of measuring, you can see as even some of them communities are always in the top, and some of them are always in the down, in the bottom. So for that, the asymmetry of this kind of intergovernmental relation is very clear. Of this kind of methodology, you can also apply to others study cases. So that is one of our points, and also we have data. I'm going to be very brief because I am depleting my 15 minutes. So the main income budget items for autonomous community, we have that data too, or the distribution of financing conditioned by the origin of the resources. In Spain, the resources are in the central state. That is one of the characterizations of our centralized state. So we have a characterization of a federal state, and also some of them are even now of the centralized state. So it's a federalized state, but not in the law and not in the full. And we have this data for the asymmetry of these intergovernmental relations. So even with that, we can see also the income and expenses of the autonomous communities, the evolution of public expenditure in the autonomous communities, and also the asymmetry. That is another graphic that you can see the very the real kind of the asymmetry that it's really big. So for that you can see all kind of that data. So for that with the depth, for example, and the evolution of the debt is also very important. And with that, we have others measurings like the homogenizing, the approval, the coordinator, the mediators for that. How the public policies are formulated, and the details operative or not cooperative mechanism. So for that, the conclusions and the discussion for the Congress is that if we can see this kind of methodology and data to apply to other cases, and the how this is changing, and the conclusions of the changes of all of these for different times and in the years, and the evolution and the asymmetry that you can see, the asymmetry in the resources, in the employees, in the taxes, in the money that is accordingly to all of the citizens in the different spaces, and other kinds of relations that with that we can see the asymmetry in the systems and in the relations. That the intergovernmental relations is because how